Namaste. G7 is our top focus story on the broadcast. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Italy for the G7 summit. The summit officially kicked off in the country's southern region. Now, ahead of the summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's invited as a special guest, held key bilateral talks with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the French President Emmanuel Macron's bonhomie was on full display as the two leaders held a bilateral in Apulia on the sidelines of the G7 summit. The Prime Minister also met UK's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and held important discussions on critical technologies, semiconductors and more. This is the Prime Minister's first overseas visit after assuming office for a third consecutive term. Now, talking to social media, Prime Minister recalled the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's visit to India and said he's committed to further bolster India-Italy ties during this visit. India holds an influential position in the group of 7 with the largest growing economy and, of course, a strategic partnership with all the 7 G7 countries. Now, India is a special invitee at the G7. India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Already the 3rd largest economy, aspiring to be already the 5th largest and aspiring to be the 3rd largest. Indian economy is larger than Canada, France, Italy and the United Kingdom. India's strategic ties with G7 countries make India a very important partner. India is also the voice of the global south, holds a critical place when it comes to the Indo-Pacific. India's key player in discussion on whether it's security, economic security and geopolitical stability. I want to quickly cut across to Italy. Joining me from there is India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan. And Geeta, Prime Minister has held a number of very important bilaterals already. But, tell us a little more about the pulse of the place and tell us how is the Prime Minister being received after this 3rd consecutive win when it comes to the National Democratic Alliance. This is the 3rd straight victory and several countries, several heads of state are going into elections. Must be very nervous whether it's the United States of America, Britain or France.
Absolutely, Gaurav. But also, in just a short moment from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be welcomed by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. He will be received by her, and it will be a very warm reception at the resort, which is where the G7 summit is going to take place. But look at the beauty of this city. It's lovely. It's far away from Rome. So we do not have a lot of Indian community or diaspora over here. But irrespective of that, we saw some of the Indians come to receive Modi, to welcome Modi late last night at the airport. And they drove down from Milan, from Rome. But Bari, Apulia are places where there aren't a huge number of Indian diaspora, and that's the reason why we have only a few. We met with a few, and they themselves seem quite excited. They are quite excited about Prime Minister Modi coming to this part of Italy. They never imagined that could be the case, where Prime Minister Modi will be attending a summit in Bari, in Apulia. Yeah. And so a lot of excitement, but in a short while from now you will see the warm reception, not just excitement amongst the Indian community, Gaurav, also excitement amongst the world leaders.
Geeta, we are well aware of the Prime Minister's, warm relationship when it comes to the French President Emmanuel Macron, or the relationship that he shares with Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. And there was a warm hug when he spoke to both of them. But the fact that he was hugged by Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, what does that indicate? And this meeting with Zelenskyy, that's quite interesting and important, considering India is a very close strategic ally of Russia, and the personal friendship between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Well, it's an outreach. We know that there were certain concerns. There was a time, Gaurav, in the initial stages of the war when the then ambassador was recalled. There were many ambassadors from very many countries that the very same President Zelenskyy, had recalled because those countries were not siding with Ukraine in this war. But slowly and steadily, I suppose there's a realization as to why India keeps Russia very close and why India cannot sever ties with Russia. The developed world realized it sooner, and Ukraine realized it later, but certainly a realization that if there is a country that can influence, it is India. If there's a country that cannot sever ties with Russia, it is India, and therefore the only country, a rare one at that, to get a waiver from the West on the sanctions that were imposed against Russia. So a unique relationship that India has with both Russia and Ukraine, and a realization, I suppose, within Ukraine that India certainly is an indispensable force in multilateral fora and cannot be ignored. So
that clearly is the power,
by President Zelenskyy.
Absolutely, that's the power of Indian diplomacy. Friends with the United States and friends with Russia, friends with Iran and friends with the United States, friends with Russia and friends also with Ukraine, and every side actually also relies so much on India and vice versa.